corner of Queen and North Front Streets, a building once stood that anchored downtown Belize City, the Paslow Building. That all changed in 2002 when a fire wiped it out, but the story behind the name still sparks debate. Today, the site has been redeveloped and serves government services, but the legacy of Thomas Paslow, a man tied to both colonial defense and slavery, continues to raise questions. To unpack the history and the meaning behind what stands there now, we spoke with Giovanni Pinello, Public History Officer at Institute for Social and Cultural Research in Belize, NICH. He breaks down the era Paslow lived in, the building's role in civic life, and how memory and heritage shape the space today.
Thomas Paslow, one of the uh, stalwart baymen, and whose building was named after him in Belize Town. But the reality also has to be looked at from the angle, the humanistic, the human perspective. Who was Thomas Paslow beyond one of those prominent settlers? We know for a fact that he owned quite a number of um, logging camps in Belize. For example, along the Belize River, you can find even to this day a number of spots that he had. Big Falls, in the area of Big Falls, and that's coming upriver from Belize River mouth towards the west. At Beaver Dam, he claimed a large portion of land there and further south. If you go to Bully Tree Falls, there is a section of the river known as Paslow Falls. And as you continue up the Mupan River, right next to where you and I originally come from, there is Clarissa Falls, which the Galvez family owns, and Chena Galvez runs that tourist destination, Clarissa Falls. Clarissa was actually Paslow's wife. She was of Afro descent, and she, as his wife, of course, also owned enslaved Africans. So Paslow was an enslaver.
While some may look back on Thomas Paslow as a prominent figure, Pinello stresses that Paslow's role as a magistrate revealed a far darker side. He enforced brutal punishments against enslaved Africans, a reminder that his legacy is rooted not only in wealth and influence, but also in cruelty.
As a magistrate, he was one of the judges in several of the court actions in which enslaved Africans were involved. And meting out punishment against the enslaved was uh, nothing easy. I mean, it went from uh, 13 lashes with the cat o' nine tails, the cat o' nine tail being a short whip with leather straps and metal tips at the end. And so their judgment was often like that. In fact, there's even a story of he himself taking a couple of his own enslaved Africans to court. And after their punishment, they're supposed to come back to work with him.
Built in the 1920s, the three-story wooden structure reflected the colonial architecture of its time. It initially housed a general store, later served as the Cityman's post office by the 1940s, and eventually became a key hub for justice and governance.
Between 1920 and 1922, they would construct what became known as the Belize Stores. The Belize Stores was the first three-story building to be constructed in Belize. The Jefferson Construction Company they had also gotten the contract to fill in that portion of what was a creek that joined Fort George, which was an island, and there was a creek or a waterway between the mainland by St. Mary's Church, that area around Gabriel Lane. That was once water. And so it was refilled. The Jefferson Construction Company of New Orleans gets that contract, and they do That building, they also had constructed, they reconstructed um, the public buildings, which are next to the Supreme Court. They also did the reconstruction of the Supreme Court, which had been burnt down in 1918, 1942, well, just at the turn of World War II. Um, let me backtrack a little. The Belize stores was perhaps the modern mall of 1920s. The idea, as the name implies, was for it to have different spaces where different types of goods were being sold.
By the 1940s, Paslow Building had become Belize City's main post office, a role it carried for decades before housing the magistrates' court and other public services. That history came to an abrupt end with the devastating fire of 2002, which left the structure in ruins and the site dubbed Ground Zero in the heart of downtown. In the years that followed, Ground Zero was redeveloped into what is now the Belize Heritage Plaza, home to the Lands and Surveys Department and other government offices. Tanya Arceo for News 5.